Welcome to this explainer. Okay, we're going to dive right into an absolutely incredible chronological tour of the rise and fall of the dinosaurs. We're talking about a 165 million year journey here, tracing their steps from, well, pretty humble origins all the way to their cataclysmic end. We're going to use the hard data and evidence to piece together exactly how these creatures adapted, grew, and eventually just dominated the entire planet. Let's get started. So, imagine stepping out of a time machine exactly 250 million years ago. What do you think you'd see? A towering T-Rex looking for a snack? A massive Brachiosaurus eating from the treetops? Well, actually, scratch that. You wouldn't see the giant monsters we know today at all. Instead, you'd be looking at the very dawn of a massive evolutionary journey. The creatures scurrying around your boots would look, honestly, remarkably different from the blockbuster movie stars we're so used to. To truly wrap our heads around dinosaurs, we first have to meet their direct ancestors. Enter the archaeosaurs. These were the dominant reptiles of the late Permian, and they totally set the evolutionary stage. Over time, this fascinating group of reptiles split down two distinct paths. One of those paths led to the crocodiles we still have swimming around today, and the other path, well, that one led straight to the dinosaurs. Now, as they diverged from that crocodile family tree, they evolved into literally thousands of different species. But you know what their most crucial biological advantage was? They developed bipedal abilities. By standing up and walking around on two legs, these early dinosaurs totally freed up their front limbs. And guys, this was a massive game changer. It opened up entirely new ways for them to grab food, defend themselves, and ultimately survive in a really unforgiving world. Let's kick off our time traveler's journey right here at the start of our timeline, the Triassic period. 250 million years ago. Think of this era as the ultimate harsh proving ground for the very first dinosaurs. It's exactly where those brand new two-legged traits were really put to the test. And if you take a look around during the Triassic, you'll immediately notice their world was nothing like ours. The supercontinent Pangaea was just this hot, dry, unforgiving landscape with zero polar ice caps. It's a stark contrast to the fragmented, varied climates we enjoy on modern Earth today. Even the plants were totally different. The vegetation was incredibly tough, sometimes highly nutritious, sure, but often potentially poisonous. So early dinosaurs had to seriously adapt their diets just to stay alive. But check out this rapid, honestly staggering evolutionary growth during such a tough period. To put it in perspective, you start with the E-raptor, right? That's basically a dog-sized dinosaur, barely a meter tall and weighing a meager 10 kilograms. Next, you've got the agile Coelophysis at about 23 kilos. But then, boom. Look at the massive jump to the Herrerasaurus at 350 kilos, all the way up to the Plateosaurus, standing 3 meters tall and weighing an astounding 4,000 kilograms. That's like the weight of a couple of cars. We are absolutely seeing the early blueprints for the true giants here. Here is the really fascinating part, though. Despite all that impressive growth and adaptation, dinosaurs weren't truly running the show just yet. They still had to share this ecosystem with a bunch of other competing organisms. It really wasn't until a mass extinction event, which was likely triggered by massive volcanic activity, rapid climate change, and possibly some smaller asteroid impacts, wiped out their competition. That event essentially wiped the slate clean. It set the stage for a completely new era, and the dinosaurs, they were absolutely ready to take over. Let's pull up our timeline again and see how this builds. We're jumping forward to 200 million years ago. The survivors of that Triassic extinction event didn't just scrape by. They absolutely thrived. They became the undisputed rulers of the Earth as we enter a very famous chapter in history. Which brings us to Section 1, the Jurassic period, Giants of the Earth. This is the point in our explainer where the dinosaurs truly conquered the globe. They spread across the continents, dominating lush forests and arid deserts alike. The Earth literally belongs to them now. And you're probably a lot more familiar with these massive beasts. The heavily armored Stegosaurus, the towering Brachiosaurus, and of course, the fearsome predator, the Allosaurus. These were some of the absolute largest creatures to ever walk the Earth. But if you look really closely into the evolutionary shadows, you'll spot a very different kind of development happening. We're talking about the emergence of much smaller, highly agile theropods. And this brings us to a brilliant spoiler for the future, the Archaeopteryx. This fascinating little creature is an absolutely crucial evolutionary link. It perfectly blends old-school dinosaur traits like a bony tail and sharp teeth with the wings and feathers of modern birds. It gives us a sneak peek into exactly where one specific branch of the dinosaur family tree is ultimately heading. But as we know, nothing lasts forever. After an incredible reign of 56 million years, the age of the giants hits a bit of a speed bump. Shifting sea levels, combined with renewed volcanic activity and climate change, trigger another minor extinction event. Now, while it wasn't a total reset of the planet, it was definitely enough to close out the Jurassic chapter and push the surviving dinosaurs into their final and honestly most spectacular era. Checking our timeline one more time, we now cross over into the Cretaceous period, kicking off 145 million years ago. This right here represents the absolute peak of dinosaur evolution. Everything they've learned, every single physical adaptation over the last 100 million years is leading right up to this ultimate climax. Moving right along to Section 2, the Cretaceous period, Kings of the Cretaceous. Now, we can't possibly talk about the kings of the Cretaceous without introducing the ultimate superstar, the undisputed apex predator of the era. You probably noticed they were missing from the Jurassic, but folks, they have finally arrived. To truly grasp the staggering scale of the Tyrannosaurus rex, just look at this number: an earth-shaking 9 tons of apex predator. And contrary to some old theories, the T-Rex was far from just a slow, lumbering scavenger. This thing was a master hunter. Standing 3.7 meters tall and stretching 12 meters long, this beast possessed remarkably keen eyesight and a highly heightened sense of smell. It used a devastating top speed of up to 40 kilometers per hour, plus jaws absolutely packed with 12-inch teeth, to actively take down really sizable herbivores like the Edmontosaurus and even heavily armored formidable opponents like the Triceratops. But the T-Rex certainly wasn't alone in this highly developed ecosystem. The Cretaceous was absolutely packed with incredibly evolved feathered theropods. Take the Velociraptor, for example. The evidence now suggests it was covered in feathers, used for warmth and agility, not flight. Or look at the Microraptor, whose feathers actually were likely used for active flight. These aren't just the giant scaly lizards we used to imagine. These creatures completely flip how we picture dinosaurs, providing even more crucial insight into the complex evolution of birds. At the exact same time, the actual Earth beneath their feet was undergoing a massive fundamental transformation. As that supercontinent, Pangaea, fully broke apart into the continents we generally recognize today, dinosaurs were forced to migrate. They became isolated in different pockets all around the globe, and they had to adapt to radically new environments, which ended up altering their evolutionary paths forever. And that leads us to Section 3, the Cataclysm, the day the world changed. All of that majestic evolutionary progress, 165 million years of adapting to shifting continents, surviving minor extinctions, and just perfecting the ultimate art of survival, came to a sudden, devastating halt with an event from the stars. Let's walk through exactly how this apocalypse went down. Because it wasn't just the initial impact, though, an asteroid creating a crater 150 kilometers wide and 20 kilometers deep is undeniably devastating. The real killer was the chain reaction. That massive collision launched so much debris into the atmosphere that it physically blocked out the sun. And without sunlight, global temperatures just plummeted drastically. No sun and no warmth meant the plants died, which meant the herbivores starved, which in turn meant the predators starved. It was a total, absolute collapse of the global food supply. The sheer scale of the devastation is almost hard to comprehend. This single, terrible cataclysm wiped out a staggering 75% of all species on Earth. In what is essentially the blink of a cosmic eye, the 165 million year reign of the giant dinosaurs was abruptly and violently brought to an end. So let's look at Section 4, the aftermath. A new world rises. You see, the story of Earth doesn't just end there in the dark. The dust did eventually settle. The skies finally cleared. And in the tragic emptiness left behind by the Titans, a completely new world began to quietly rise up from the ashes. The destruction of the old guard basically paved the way for the new. With the massive apex predators completely gone, the tiny early mammals finally had the ecological space to thrive, diversify, and millions of years later, eventually evolve into us. Meanwhile, that 25% of species that did survive, well, that included those small aviation-based feathered dinosaurs we talked about earlier. They took to the newly cleared skies, eventually evolving into the modern birds you probably see outside your window today. We have learned so much about their incredible journey through this explainer today. We've literally watched them evolve from tiny, dog-sized reptiles into 9-ton apex predators. But even as we look at all this evidence, there are still some massive mysteries left completely unsolved. We're left to wonder just how complex their biology truly was. For example, we know they dominated for 165 million years. But were all dinosaurs strictly cold-blooded, or were some of them actually warm-blooded? The evidence is pointing to some absolutely fascinating possibilities, and it just goes to show that even after 165 million years of history, the dinosaurs still have plenty of secrets left for us to uncover. What do you think we'll find out next?